All right, guys, so the Tesla Model Y. In the Model Y Performance, you have a couple different little things that change. You got alloy pedals. It used to not be there used to be a performance option on the Performance. Now this is just the Performance. Now, so with the Performance, you get lowered suspension, you get the new wheels, and then slightly less range. And also, the biggest thing, a faster 0 to 60. So the 0 to 60 in the Performance is 3.5. Kind of touching upon the whole exterior styling, I feel like Tesla really nailed it with this. Honestly, when I see the Model Y now next to a Model X, I do like the Model Y better. I feel like the Model X is starting to look a little dated along with the Model S. The Model S there's certain key things that I wish they would just kind of adjust. Go up with the trims, maybe a little less chrome, or just adjusting the back. But that being said, the Model Y and the Model 3 look very similar, to the point where I kind of mistake them on the road, just because the Model Y literally looks like a bigger version of the Model 3. But my thing is, this car really falls in that sweet spot for a lot of people. It's not outrageously priced. It's definitely an expensive car, but it's not as outrageously priced as the Model X. So you really have this sweet spot, in my opinion, of the perfectly priced Tesla. So let's talk a little bit about the interior. The interior of this car, I would say it's nice interior, but I wouldn't say it's insanely nice. I wouldn't put it up there with the cars that have the best interior. There's certain aspects that I feel like feel a little cheap, but certain aspects that feel really well done. I think one thing with Tesla people always kind of comment on is the fact that the quality control isn't there. And it makes sense. It's a smaller company. It doesn't have the size yet in the quality control yet that some of these other manufacturers do. But I gotta say, that being said, it feels really nice. I mean, this particular model, we have the black with the wood trim. You can select the white instead. The white I was a little bit hesitant on because I've heard a lot of reports of people with blue jeans or something like that staining the white seats. And that, to me, I didn't want to have it be a concern. I love the way the white looks, but that was a bit of a concern to me. There's little minor accents in here that I feel like could have been a different material. So the center console is gloss black. And I do feel like the gloss black is a horrible material. It immediately has fingerprints all over it. It scratches easy and just generally looks dirty. And I don't know that that was the right choice for the material to put in this car. One thing that's kind of new to the Model 3 and the Model Y is that the screen is now horizontal and not vertical like the Model X and the Model S. Now, I don't particularly care if the screen's horizontal or vertical, but one thing I have noticed in this car is it does feel like sometimes I want to tilt the screen towards me. Obviously, it's locked in place, but it makes me feel like I want to just turn this a little bit. It's not that I need it to be like I can't see it, it's just the simple fact that it almost feels like it's facing away from me. But at the same time, it is a big tree and you're driving, you don't want to be completely distracted by that. Also up front, there's nothing up front. You have no heads-up display, you have nothing in front of you. At first, I was wondering how this would feel driving over time, but honestly, the more I drive it, the more I like having nothing in front of me. I realize that I don't look at a speedometer that often anyway. You kind of know your speeds. If you're an experienced driver, you kind of know how fast 70 is. You kind of can feel out how fast 45 is, 25, and so on. So I don't really find myself looking too much at my speedometer. I've seen a lot of videos where people are complaining about the Model Y steering wheel as far as the shape, the fact that it's kind of boring. And I don't really mind it. I actually like it. I actually like the size of the steering wheel. I like the shape, I like the feel, the thickness. It fits nice in your hands as far as, if you're driving like this, it does have a nice feel to it. So the leather isn't actually real leather. So we don't have any real animals in here, which is great for the environment, great for animals. And I honestly don't notice too much as a driver. I don't feel like I'm picking apart and saying, oh, this isn't real leather. As far as the cargo space in the back, now, like I mentioned before, the Model Y is not a huge car, but it does have a lot of room. The back seats fit people comfortably, but I do feel like they're a little uncomfortable. Sitting back there, I felt like they weren't as comfortable as I wanted to be. Coming from something like a 4Runner, I felt like the 4Runner was a little bit more comfortable in the back. The back seats, the cushioning, and just the way the seats feel, didn't feel super comfortable, and I don't believe they move forward or backwards. Now getting into the actual center console, the center console has a lot of cool features. You basically have a little pop-up right here that will suit 2 phones and have wireless charging on both those phones. Now where it gets a little weird is how the lids close. Now it's something that everyone's used to, a little push and it opens, right? So push down and it pops open. But where it kind of goes off is how you close it. You have to really close it gently, and it'll even give you a message on the screen that says, hey, close console lid gently. And sometimes I find myself closing that 2 or 3 times before it actually closes. That can be a little irritating, but also, you know, it's a very minor thing that I don't feel like is something that makes me not like it, because that itself, just to have somewhere to place my phone and know it's gonna stay in there, is a nice thing, and it does fit my iPhone 11 Pro, and it kind of feels like it's that perfect size for a phone. So getting into some of the tech on this car, I think that's the main thing that people want to know. A big pro to Tesla is the obvious screen. The screen is massive. It's been described as a huge iPad. Whatever you want to call it, it's there, and it really changes the driving experience. Now, having it in here, you know, just the ability to click through something, have a camera pop up. Have little things like your music, being able to actually physically log into Spotify. So on here, if you're a Spotify user, you can actually log into Spotify, have your account open, and it doesn't actually have to work off your phone. That to me is a big deal, because having 2 people in the car, I don't always have to worry about connecting my phone. Is it gonna connect to my phone or my fiance's first when we're both driving together all the time? Just those small little subtle things that I feel like are a big deal on a day-to-day use. The way the car drives, that is one thing that kind of caught me off guard a little bit. I expected it to feel a little more like an SUV, you know, a little more body roll, and just generally a little less safe. That's how I felt with a lot of SUVs. And I say that because I'm used to driving sports cars and different things that have a stiff suspension. I know it can take a corner at a certain speed. And this car's really surprised me with that, because I feel like it's planted. The center of gravity is very low. With all the batteries on the bottom of the car, you do feel that weight, and I like it. You know, as we're going around a corner right now, I'm staying pretty flat. Now, there's still a little bit of body roll, don't get me wrong, but it's definitely a huge difference from your typical SUV. I feel that it's a more comfortable drive on a day-to-day basis to not have to slow down so heavily for some corners. So as far as the actual acceleration and all that, this has a 0 to 60 of 3.5 seconds, like I mentioned earlier, and it is a fast acceleration. It's something you gotta experience. I mean, it's not something that, it doesn't feel slow by any means. Now, it's not as fast as the ludicrous mode on the Model X or the Model S, but it's plenty fast enough. And to be honest, I don't know that I really want it any faster than that. I feel like any faster than that is pretty much a gimmick that you're not gonna use. Because even this is kind of uncomfortable. You know, when you really pin it, you know, the first couple times I'm doing that, I almost feel a little nauseous, a little sick. Like it's not a comfortable pinning it. So it's nice when you need it, but it's not always something I want to use. So the acceleration does have 2 options. It has chill and sport. In chill, you can still have a fast acceleration without it being so overwhelmingly fast that you're worried about hitting the gas too hard and accelerating fast. The steering modes, you have comfort, standard, and sport. In comfort, you definitely feel it's a lot lighter. You know, just me playing with it right now, it's definitely a lot lighter. Standard gets a little bit heavier, and then sport gets pretty heavy. I tend to like the sport, but being someone that drives sports cars a lot, it feels a little more luxurious to me to have a heavier steering. When I go to comfort, it kind of feels like I have a lot of play in the steering, and it tends to feel cheap to me. Just a personal preference, but you do have the option to change it. When it comes to the actual regenerative braking, this is one of my favorite parts about the car, because as I'm coming around this corner right now, I'm simply letting off the gas, and the car is actually doing a little bit of braking for me, and it, you know, hence the name regenerative braking. I really drive it where I'm on the gas and then I'm letting off the gas. Instead of basically like a normal car, I'd be letting off the gas, it's continue to cruise, and then I'd hit the brake. I don't really find myself braking that often unless I really need to slow down quickly. Now, same with the steering modes, you do have an option to choose standard or low for that. The low setting is gonna obviously brake less. The standard setting, I think, is really comfortable, is gonna hold you back a little bit more. So the second I start letting off the gas, you're gonna feel it. Then you have stuff like stopping modes. Stopping modes, you have creep, roll, and hold. Creep is gonna be the most, and you're just gonna feel it keep going when you let off the gas. And hold, it's actually you're gonna see it almost like you're in park at the light. It's gonna hold you. I like that because I just basically, I'm sitting at the light, the car's holding for me, and I'm not really worried about braking and switching to the gas as soon as the light turns green. That kind of leads me into one of my favorite features of the car, and it's such a subtle feature, but I feel like it's a really cool thing for the car to be able to detect, and that's the green light chime. So literally you have a setting here that you can turn on, and it'll basically ding when there's a green light. It's cool because, you know, say you're looking at your phone, say you're just trying to adjust your navigation, whatever it is, at the stoplight, you know, That being said, safe driving, guys. Don't drive distracted. I'm just saying that when you look down, you're looking at your kids in the back, whatever, it'll basically ding and say, hey, the light's green. There is some little things I notice immediately when I get in this car, and the road noise is kind of loud. And I think a lot of it has to do with the size of the tires on here, that they're basically low profile tires. I'm feeling each bump, the lowered suspension on the performance. But road noise is kind of loud. And now you have no sound of an engine or anything like that, but I do feel like it's louder than I'd like it to be. There's little things you kind of wouldn't expect, and stuff like opening doors. So there's actually a button to open the door instead of a door handle on the inside. So when you click that button, the door will go ahead and pop open, and it doesn't actually open the door for you. It just gives it a little pop. So basically that initial kind of like opening, and then you have to open the door the rest of the way. Now, this to me is something that I don't know if it really makes a lot of sense. It's a little weird, and it's not exactly my favorite. It sometimes feels like it's a little overboard technology to get in the way versus a typical door handle. But also, like, I'm not really complaining about it. So I want to get on the freeway a little bit to show you guys the auto steer. So this model has the autopilot, auto steer, and it does a fantastic job. So let me kind of get on the road right now, show you guys everything it can do. So getting onto the freeway, it's really nice with that 0 to 60. You know it's going to get up to speed of traffic, and you know you're not going to have a problem speeding up very quickly. But so to put on auto steer, you're going to double tap this right here and hold it, and then go ahead and there you go, you're set. I'm going to go ahead and hit the blinker to get over. It's going to recognize there's no cars right there, and it's going to go ahead and get over for me. Up here I have my max of what I can set. So right now it's set to 65 miles per hour max. Now what that means is it's literally only going to go 65 miles an hour. So if I go ahead and increase this, that doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to go faster, because it does depend on the car in front of me. Right now you can see I increased that, but we're still at 64 miles per hour. It is going to ask that you do keep your hands on the wheel, as far as you do touch it and apply force from time to time. If you don't follow that, I've had it actually tell me, hey, it won't do auto steer until the next drive. But see, now that this truck has moved out of the way, we can see that I'm going to start accelerating now because no car's in front of me. As far as getting over, it's going to weigh out. You can see it puts these lines right here, but it is going to weigh out. So if I go ahead and try to change lanes right now, you can see it's going to wait till it's safe. It's going to slow up or speed up depending on how I can get over, and it works really well. I mean, I personally love it, and I think it's a necessity if you're going to buy this car to spend the money on auto steer. I think one thing that's really cool is how it recognizes traffic. The fact that it can see the truck in front of me, and a lot of times see the truck in front of the truck in front of me. Currently, right now, it can't, but you can see. It's hard for me to show you guys on here, but it can actually see 3 cars up on the left side, and that's something I can even barely see myself. So it recognizing those things, it's pretty insane. It really is. It's something. It's just like, it's a little mind-blowing to see it drive itself, to feel it drive itself, to feel it correct. There are some issues I've had, and I do notice, like, for example, we have a truck to our right. If I have a big truck right there, what tends to happen is if they inch over to my lane a little bit, it will slam on the brakes pretty hard to make sure that that truck's not going to get over your lane. It's a great safety feature, but it also means that it's not always the smoothest ride when you have that on. You can change different settings in here too, and I'll go over this more in another video, but you can change different lane changing styles. So under autopilot, you can customize that right there, and basically decide if you want it to change lanes based on, mild, average, or Mad Max. So it'll change the speed of how you change lanes. I really don't have a lot of complaints about autopilot, especially in the amount of time I've used. I really think it's something that is going to be a necessity at some point in time. Like, all these cars having autopilot, I feel like can really change how the world is. If you don't have autopilot on navigation, it's not going to go ahead and set up lanes for you. So in other words, if I'm getting on the freeway over here, I do need to physically change lanes to get over there. And sometimes it has a little trouble distinguishing if it's exiting or not, even if I have it to set up to exit. So the auto steer system is actually still beta, especially for side roads. Now on side roads, it becomes hard for the car to tell where things are, because you can see off this screen right now that a big portion of it is based on the lines of the road. That being said, a lot of roads don't have actual lanes. They might be subtle, they might disappear, and when it does do that, it has a hard time detecting where the road is and where the lane is, I should say, which makes sense, right? So I think that's something they're still working on. I've also noticed that on side streets, when I'm pulling up to a light, it notices the light far too late. So in other words, if this green sign coming up was a light, it notices it about, I don't know how to directly describe it, but just notices it too late to where I'm already preparing to brake. And to me, that doesn't seem like something that it's not doing it itself. At that point now, I'm engaging and having to make sure that it doesn't run that light or slam on the brakes, you know, those kind of things.
Overall, the Tesla Model Y is a great car for the money. There's nothing really in its price range that competes directly with what Tesla offers. Between the auto steer, autopilot, large iPad-like screen, and this simplified driving experience, it really is the perfect commuter. It looks good, it drives well, but that's not without its quality control issues. Some of the panels don't line up directly. Some of the pieces still feel a little cheap. So personally, I love the car, and I hope this video helped you with any questions you had about the Model Y. I'll be covering a lot more stuff on this car in the near future. Stay tuned.